I never thought I would see the day when my own daughter looked at me, not as her father, but as a wallet. And it happened on what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, her wedding. The hall was glowing that evening. Crystal chandeliers spilled light over tables draped in ivory cloth. The music swelled from the string quartet in the corner, the sound of champagne glasses clinking and laughter echoing. I sat quietly at my table watching her in her white gown, remembering the first time I held her as a newborn, her tiny fingers curling around mine. For a moment I let myself believe this was still the little girl I raised with her mother. Then she picked up the microphone. Her voice, steady and confident, cut through the chatter of the crowd. "Dad," she said, her smile as polished as the jewels on her necklace. "It's time. Mom left us $10 million. It's time for you to hand it over. We need it now to start our new life together." The hall went dead silent. I froze. The glass in my hand trembled. Every eye in that room turned toward me, the proud father of the bride waiting for my reaction. I tried to smile, though. Inside my chest felt hollow. My daughter wasn't asking me privately. She wasn't even requesting. She was announcing, declaring. In front of hundreds of guests, she cornered me with her demand. Her fiancé, standing smugly beside her, chimed in, "Your old dad, let us handle the money. It's our turn now." I heard whispers ripple through the crowd. Some guests lowered their eyes. Others leaned forward, hungry for the drama. In that moment, I wasn't her father anymore. I wasn't the man who stayed up nights fixing her broken bicycle, who worked 2 jobs so she could have piano lessons. I was just the man holding the purse strings. My hand gripped the stem of the champagne glass tighter. I thought of her mother, my late wife, who had spent her last days urging me to protect what we built together. I thought of all the years we sacrificed the nights we went without, so our daughter could have everything. And here she was, treating it like a prize she was entitled to right in front of everyone. The microphone squeaked as she leaned closer, her voice firm. "Dad, prove your love tonight. Sign the papers." It wasn't a request, it was a command. I looked around. Relatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Old friends stared at me, pity in their eyes. And then a voice, soft, low, slipped into my ear. "Don't sign anything here," whispered a man beside me. An old friend, someone who had known me since my 20s. I turned, slightly nodded. That one whisper was like a lifeline pulling me back from the edge. I took a slow breath. Then, without a word, I lifted the champagne glass to my lips, sipped, and set it back down. My eyes never left my daughter's. I let a small, faint smile curl on my lips. Not anger, not submission, just silence. The silence was louder than any shout I could have given. She blinked, caught off guard. Her fiancé shifted uncomfortably, waiting for me to break. But I didn't. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain myself. I didn't defend my years of sacrifice. I simply sat there quiet, letting the weight of her words sink into the air. And in that silence, I felt something shift inside me. This was not a mistake. This was not a slip of the tongue. This was a plan. And they had chosen to humiliate me on her wedding day because they believed I would cave under the weight of an audience. But they didn't know me as well as they thought. I smiled once more, stood slowly, and adjusted my jacket. The crowd stared as I stepped away from the table. I didn't even glance back at the microphone at my daughter's stunned face or at the fiancé's smirk fading into unease. I walked out of the hall into the night air, leaving the music and laughter behind me. And in my heart, I made a promise. Tomorrow, I would decide their fate. When I stepped out of that wedding hall into the cold night air, I didn't feel anger. I felt something heavier. Heavier than humiliation. Heavier than betrayal. It was disappointment, because I remembered where it all began. You see, when my wife and I first married, we had nothing. Not a dime to our names. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment on the rough side of town. The walls were thin, the neighbors loud, and every winter we had to stuff towels under the door just to keep the draft out. I worked days at a construction site, hauling bricks and cement. At night, I washed dishes at a diner until my fingers were pruned and raw. My wife took a job at the local library. She loved books, but that job didn't pay much. Still, she smiled every morning as she packed her lunch, telling me one day we'll look back and laugh at these days. Back then, we counted every penny. We skipped dinners out. We mended our clothes instead of buying new ones. I remember her sitting at the kitchen table with a little notebook writing down every dollar we spent. Rent, groceries, bus fare. Nothing was too small to track, and somehow through grit and patience we began to climb. We saved enough to buy a small fixer-upper house. I spent my weekends repairing broken pipes, sanding floors, painting walls until my back screamed. My wife planted flowers in the front yard. Slowly, that house became a home. Then when our daughter was born, everything changed. I held her in my arms and felt like the richest man alive, even though we barely had 2 nickels to rub together. I promised myself and my wife that this child would never go without. So we worked even harder. I took every overtime shift I could get. My wife picked up tutoring on the weekends. The money trickled in, then built up. We bought another house, rented it out, then another. Little by little, brick by brick, the foundation of our future grew. Over the years, those sacrifices turned into assets, rental homes, savings, investments. By the time my wife passed away, what once felt impossible had become real, a fortune of nearly $10 million. But to us, it was never just money. It was proof of every sacrifice we made. Proof of every night we came home bone-tired, but still found the strength to kiss our daughter goodnight. Proof of love written in dollars and deeds. And that's why standing in that wedding hall hearing my daughter demand it, as if it were hers by right, it cut deeper than any insult, because she had no idea. She had no memory of those long nights, no memory of the hunger we pushed through, no memory of her mother sewing up old clothes so she could have piano lessons. She only saw the finished story, not the chapters we bled to write. I thought back to one winter in particular. The heating broke in our tiny house, and we couldn't afford repairs. I wore 2 jackets to work and gave my wife the thicker blanket. She gave it back to me when I was asleep. Neither of us complained. We told each other, it's only temporary. And it was. That's what I wanted to tell my daughter at her wedding. Nothing worth having is easy. But she didn't want to hear lessons. She wanted the end result delivered to her on a silver platter in front of her guests, like a performance. I kept walking that night, block after block, the sound of traffic humming in my ears. My mind replayed those memories like old film reels. The laughter of my wife in the kitchen, the way she kissed my forehead when I came home late, the day our daughter took her first steps across the living room floor, wobbling, laughing, falling into her mother's arms. I thought, how could that child grow into someone who would treat me like this? I couldn't find the answer. By the time I reached my front porch, my legs ached, but my decision had started to form. I didn't know the exact details yet, but I knew one thing my daughter had chosen: greed over family. And that meant I had to make a choice too. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and sat in the quiet of my living room. The walls were lined with photographs, my wedding, my wife holding our baby birthdays, holidays. Every picture told a story of love, sacrifice, family. I stared at those faces until the room blurred. Then I whispered into the silence, almost as if my wife could hear me, I promised you I'd protect what we built. And I will. That night I didn't sleep much. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, hearing her voice in my head. I knew the path ahead would not be easy, but I also knew I couldn't allow our life's work to be disrespected and squandered. When the first light of morning crept through the blinds, I swung my legs off the bed and put my feet on the cold floor. I had made my decision. Tomorrow they would learn the true meaning of family. The morning after the wedding, I couldn't shake the images from my head. My daughter in her gown, smiling for the cameras, but her eyes cold when they turned to me. Her fiancé standing tall beside her, smug and certain. The silence of the guests when she demanded I hand over everything. I sat at my kitchen table, a half-empty cup of coffee cooling in my hands, replaying it all. But the truth was, the signs had been there long before the wedding day. I just hadn't wanted to see them. I remembered the engagement dinner a few months back. The restaurant was fancy candles flickering on polished tables, waiters moving quietly with trays of wine. It should have been a joyful night, but something in the air felt off. My daughter hardly looked at me. When she did, it was only to make a sharp comment about my old suit. Her fiancé chuckled under his breath, whispering something in French to her, and she laughed a laugh that felt less like joy and more like ridicule. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was imagining things. But the feeling lingered heavy. At the wedding rehearsal, it was worse. They arranged the seating chart without asking me where I wanted to sit. I was placed far from the head table, almost like an afterthought. When I asked about it, my daughter said, "Oh, Dad, don't be dramatic. You'll still have a seat." That word dramatic. As if I were a burden. As if wanting to be part of my only daughter's big day was an inconvenience. I swallowed my pride. I told myself it's her day, not mine. Let it go. But then came the small things. The whispers I wasn't supposed to hear. One evening I stopped by her place unexpectedly. I could hear her voice through the door before I knocked. "He'll sign it." "Don't worry," she was saying. "He's too old to fight us. Once the papers are in front of him, he won't embarrass me in public." I stood frozen outside that door, my knuckles inches from knocking. My chest tightened. I should have walked away right then, should have called her out, but I didn't. I told myself I misheard. That maybe she was talking about something else. Denial is a funny thing. You cling to it because the truth hurts too much. But the truth doesn't stay hidden. It grows until it explodes. At the wedding, when she raised that microphone and demanded the money, I knew all those little moments had been pointing here. The engagement dinner. The seating chart. The whispers. They were all warnings I had chosen to ignore. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized it wasn't just her new husband's idea. No, my daughter was fully part of it. She planned the public humiliation. She chose to put me on display knowing I'd be cornered with no way to refuse without causing a scene. What she didn't know was that silence can be louder than words. I thought back to one moment during the wedding. Just before she took the microphone, I caught her glancing at her fiancé. He nodded slightly, a smirk, tugging at his lips as if they were about to perform some well-rehearsed act. And in a way they were. They thought the script was written. They thought they knew how I would react. They thought I would cave hand over everything just to keep her smiling in her wedding dress. But I didn't. I remembered gripping my champagne glass tighter, forcing myself to stay calm. I remembered the voice of my old friend beside me whispering, "Don't sign anything." That one line pulled me back. It reminded me that this wasn't love speaking. It was greed. And greed doesn't deserve reward. I put down my coffee cup and rubbed my hands over my face. The house was quiet, too quiet. My wife's picture stared back at me from the mantel, her smile frozen in time. I whispered, "You were right. I should have seen this sooner." The silence answered me, but inside a new clarity began to form. That wedding wasn't just a celebration, it was a trap. Every step, every word, every look was designed to corner me. But they underestimated me. I'm old, yes, but I'm not weak. As the day wore on, I walked through the house, looking at the photographs on the walls. Our first home. Vacations we took. My daughter's 5th birthday party, her face covered in cake and frosting. I touched the glass frame and sighed. Where did that little girl go? I didn't know. But I did know one thing: the young woman who stood at the altar demanding my fortune was not the same child I raised. And if she thought I was going to let her and her husband drain everything her mother and I built, she was wrong. I turned back to the table, pulled out a notebook, and began writing down names. The people who had been loyal. The people who had been kind. The people who had never once looked at me as a bank account. Because when the time came, they would be the ones who mattered. And my daughter would learn the hard way that betrayal has a price. The more I thought about that night, the more those words echoed in my head. "Dad, you're old. Let us handle the money." It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Her voice was steady, strong, almost rehearsed. She didn't look at me as if she were asking for help. She looked at me like a lawyer addressing a case, like a performer delivering her lines. And her new husband stood beside her, nodding, smiling faintly, like a man who had already won. Those words were meant to cut, and they did, because I had heard cruel words before from strangers, from business rivals, from people who never cared for me. But to hear them from my own child, it tore something inside me that will never fully heal. I sat there gripping the edge of the table, forcing myself to stay calm. Guests around me shifted in their chairs. Some looked embarrassed. Others whispered to each other, hands over their mouths. But no one spoke up. It was like being on trial, except I was guilty simply for existing. I wanted to stand and remind her of the nights I stayed awake to rock her back to sleep when she cried. I wanted to tell her how her mother and I went without heat in the dead of winter, so we could afford her ballet lessons. I wanted to tell her that everything she had, the house she grew up in, the college she attended, was built from the sweat of my back and her mother's endless patience. But I didn't, because I knew it wouldn't matter. In that moment, she didn't see me as her father. She saw me as a gatekeeper, standing between her and the life she thought she deserved. Her words came again, sharper this time. "Dad, don't make this difficult. Everyone here knows you don't need that money. We do. Sign the papers." My chest tightened. My pulse beat in my ears. The microphone carried her voice to every corner of the hall. The string quartet had stopped playing. Even the waiters stood still. It felt like the whole world was watching me. Then, her husband stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder as if to reassure her, but his eyes locked onto mine. "You've had your time. Let us build our future with what you and your wife left behind." I clenched my jaw so tight it hurt. His words, what we left behind. As if he had any claim. As if he had been there when we skipped meals, when we saved pennies in jars, when we lay awake at night, wondering if we would make it another month. I almost spoke. Almost. But just as I opened my mouth, I felt a hand brush my arm. It was my old friend sitting beside me. His voice was low, almost drowned out by the silence, but I heard it clear as day. "Don't sign. Not here, not like this." And in that moment, I realized he was right. This wasn't a conversation about love or family. This was a performance. My daughter and her husband had chosen this stage, this moment, because they thought I would crumble under the pressure. They thought the eyes of the crowd would force me to obey. But love doesn't demand. Love doesn't humiliate. Love doesn't strip you bare in front of strangers. Only greed does that. I drew in a long breath, set my pen down on the table, and let the silence linger. My daughter shifted, confused. The fiancé frowned, his smugness faltering. Whispers grew louder around us, spreading like ripples in water. I could have lashed out. I could have shouted, told the whole hall about the sacrifices their money was built on, about the truth of who my daughter had become. But I chose something stronger. I chose silence. I looked at her directly into her eyes and simply shook my head. A small, quiet motion, but enough. For the first time that evening, I saw something flicker across her face. Not triumph, not anger, uncertainty. Her voice cracked just slightly when she said, "Dad, don't do this." But I did. I didn't move my lips. I didn't explain myself. I just leaned back in my chair, lifted my glass of champagne, and took a slow sip. The sound of crystal against my teeth echoed louder in my mind than her demands. It was the only answer I needed to give, because sometimes silence is the most powerful word you can speak. The guests began to stir again, murmurs filling the air. Some shook their heads, others looked away. But my daughter stood frozen, the microphone still in her hand, her confidence unraveling thread by thread. Her new husband leaned close to her, whispering something I couldn't hear. His eyes narrowed at me, but I didn't blink. I simply set the glass back down, folded my hands, and stared ahead. And in that stillness, I made a decision. If she wanted to strip me of dignity in front of everyone I knew, then I would show her just how much dignity I still had left. Not with shouting, not with anger, but with something far more final. I didn't know the exact steps yet, but I knew one thing they had already lost. Because the moment you reduce a parent to a wallet, you've already bankrupted yourself. When I left that wedding hall and stepped into the night air, I thought back on every moment that had led to this. The humiliation wasn't born in a single evening. No, it had been building quietly, piece by piece, like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. And I realized then that the signs had always been there. I just refused to see them. A few months before the wedding, I remember going through some old files at home. I kept all of our important papers in a locked drawer: property deeds, bank documents, insurance policies. They were all carefully organized, because that's how my wife and I always did things. But that day I noticed something odd. A photocopy of our lake house deed was missing. At first I thought maybe I had misplaced it. I turned the drawer upside down, searching every folder. Nothing. I told myself it wasn't important. After all, I still had the original. What harm could a missing copy do? But a chill ran through me. Not long after I received a phone call from a young attorney I had never met. His voice was polite, almost rehearsed. "Mr. Parker, I hear you might be considering transferring assets to your family. I'd be happy to assist with the paperwork." I froze. "Who told you that I asked?" He paused for a second too long before answering. "Oh, just referrals, word of mouth." I hung up the phone without another word. At the time, I brushed it off as coincidence. Maybe he dialed the wrong number. Maybe he was fishing for business. But now looking back, I know it wasn't coincidence at all. The third sign came a few weeks later. I had stopped by my daughter's place to drop off a box of her childhood things, old photo albums, some of her mother's jewelry. I thought she might like them as she started her new life. When I arrived, I heard voices through the door, hers and her fiancé's. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but their words froze me in place. "He'll sign," she said confidently. "Trust me. Dad's too soft. He won't embarrass me in front of everyone. Once the papers are in front of him, it'll all be done." My throat tightened. My hand hovered over the doorknob, but I couldn't bring myself to open it. I just stood there listening. Her fiancé's voice followed. "And if he resists," she laughed, a sound that didn't belong to the little girl I once knew, "then I'll make him look selfish. No one will side with him if I say he's hoarding the money." I backed away from that door, my heart pounding. I wanted to confront her then and there, but I didn't. I told myself I must have misheard, that she couldn't mean it, because denial is easier than admitting the truth. The truth was too painful. My daughter, the baby I carried on my shoulders, the girl whose scraped knees I bandaged, had already chosen greed over love. And yet I pushed those thoughts aside. I convinced myself it was just pre-wedding stress, that she was nervous, not cruel. But the final sign came the night before the wedding. I was at the rehearsal dinner, sitting off to the side, when her fiancé pulled me aside. "Mr. Parker," he said smoothly, his hand gripping my shoulder, "you'll do the right thing tomorrow, won't you? You wouldn't want to spoil your daughter's big day." Something in his tone chilled me. It wasn't a question. It was a warning. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my wife's photograph on the nightstand. I whispered, "What happened to her? How did we raise her into this?" But of course, no answer came. Looking back now, it all makes sense. The missing papers, the lawyer's call, the whispers through the door, the smirk on her fiancé's face. They had planned this. Every step, every detail. And I, blinded by love, ignored the evidence. At the wedding, when she stood there demanding $10 million as if it were a gift basket, it wasn't the beginning of the betrayal. It was the finale of a play they had been scripting for months. But here's the thing about plays: scripts can be torn apart. Because what they didn't understand was that I had already been tested by life. I had faced years of hard labor, sleepless nights, and loss greater than they could imagine. And I wasn't about to lose the last piece of dignity my wife and I had built together. So as I sat there that night, silent in the face of their demands, I wasn't just refusing to sign. I was finally acknowledging the truth. My daughter had betrayed me, and I would make sure she understood what betrayal costs. After the wedding, after the silence, after all the whispers and the stares, I went home and sat alone in the dark. The house was quiet, too quiet. Every creak of the old wood sounded louder than usual. Every shadow seemed to press in around me. I sat in my armchair staring at the photograph on the mantel. It was my wife, her smile caught in a moment that felt like yesterday, though it had been 5 long years since she left me. Her hair pulled back, her eyes warm, her hand resting gently on our daughter's shoulder. I spoke into the emptiness. "You wouldn't believe what she did tonight." Of course there was no reply. But in that stillness, her voice came back to me, not from the room, but from memory, clear, steady, as if she were standing right beside me again. It was the night she passed. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and fading flowers. Machines beeped softly, a cruel reminder that time was running out. I held her hand fragile and cool as she whispered through shallow breaths. "Promise me," she said. Her eyes locked on mine fierce, despite the weakness in her body. "Promise me you won't let them take everything we built. Promise me you'll protect it." I remember my throat tightening. "Don't talk like that," I told her, though. I knew we were both pretending. Her fingers squeezed mine. "Promise me." And I did. I swore to her that night I would not let greed tear apart what we had spent a lifetime building. I swore that the years of labor, the nights of hunger, the sacrifices we made would not be wasted. I thought of those words as I stared at her photograph now, and suddenly, the pain of the wedding faded. The shame, the whispers, even my daughter's cold words. All of it burned away, leaving only her voice echoing like a command. "Promise me." I realized that every sign I ignored, every red flag I brushed aside, had been because I didn't want to face this moment. I didn't want to admit that my own child could betray me. But my wife had seen it coming. Somehow she had known. She had known that money could twist people, even family. I leaned back in the chair, closed my eyes, and let the memory wash over me. The last night in the hospital, I had watched her chest rise and fall weaker each time. I had kissed her forehead and whispered that I loved her. She had smiled faintly and said, "Take care of yourself. And don't let anyone push you. You are stronger than you think." Those were her last words to me, "stronger than you think." And as I sat there in the silence of my living room, I realized she was right. I had been stronger than I knew. I had endured poverty. I had endured loss. And now I would endure betrayal, but I wouldn't bow to it. My daughter thought she had cornered me. Her husband thought he had played the perfect hand. They believed the weight of the crowd would crush me into submission. But they forgot who I was. I wasn't just an old man sitting quietly at a wedding. I was the man who carried bricks under the summer sun until his back gave out. I was the man who came home at midnight covered in grease and dirt, only to wake at dawn and do it again. I was the man who held his wife's hand as she slipped away and kept living, because she asked him to. I'd already survived worse than humiliation, and that night I decided I would not just survive this betrayal, I would answer it. I stood up, walked to the mantel, and picked up her picture frame. I looked into her frozen smile and whispered, "I promised you, I won't fail you now." My hands trembled, but not from fear, from resolve. Because now it wasn't just about money. It wasn't even just about betrayal. It was about honoring her, honoring everything we built, honoring every sacrifice that had led us here. And that meant I had to act. I placed the photo back gently, as if laying down a vow. Then I turned toward the desk where all the documents were kept. Deeds, contracts, bank records, the same papers they thought they could use against me. I opened the drawer, ran my hand over the folders, and felt the weight of my wife's trust pressing down on me. I whispered again, "Stronger than you think," and I knew what I had to do. From that moment, the decision was made. They wanted to humiliate me in public. They wanted to force my hand. Then I would show them that silence is not weakness. Silence can be the sharpest blade. Tomorrow I would cut them out, not with anger, but with finality, and they would never see it coming. I can still hear the echo of that microphone in my ears, the way my daughter's voice carried across the hall, the way her words, sharp, cold, calculated, were broadcast to every guest sitting in those gold-trimmed chairs. "If you really love me, Dad," she said, her smile stretched tight across her face, "you'll prove it tonight. Sign the papers." That was the moment it shifted. What should have been a father giving away his daughter to the man she loved became something else entirely: a trial, a performance, a humiliation. I looked around the room. Rows of faces stared back at me. Some avoided my eyes. Others leaned in, eager to see what I would do. I could almost hear their thoughts. Will he sign? Will he refuse? What kind of father would deny his daughter on her wedding day? The weight of that expectation pressed down on me like a stone. Her fiancé stood beside her, his arm wrapped around her waist, his chin lifted in mock confidence. "Go on, Mr. Parker," he added, voice smooth as glass. "Don't keep everyone waiting. This is her big day." My jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. I wanted to tell them both that love doesn't come with a price tag, that family isn't a contract you sign in public to avoid embarrassment. But I didn't, because I knew nothing I said would reach them. Instead, I stared at the pen sitting on the table. Black ink, smooth barrel, waiting. I could feel the eyes of the room pulling me forward, as though the pen itself had become a weapon aimed at me. My fingers twitched. For a second, I considered grabbing it, ending the performance, giving her what she wanted, just to make the stares go away. But then I heard it again, her voice, not my daughter's, but my wife's, faint from the memory that never leaves me. "You are stronger than you think." And in that instant, I knew. I reached for the pen. The guest leaned forward, breathless. My daughter's eyes gleamed, her lips parting as if she could already taste the victory. Her fiancé smirked, certain the trap had worked. My fingers brushed the pen. I picked it up. The entire hall went silent. But instead of signing, I turned the pen in my hand, studying it like a useless toy. Then slowly, I set it back on the table. I didn't sign. I pushed the papers back across the table toward them. Gasps rippled through the room. My daughter's face paled, her smile faltering. "Dad, what are you doing?" Her husband's jaw tightened. He whispered something in her ear, but I saw the flicker of panic in his eyes. I stood, straightened my jacket, and looked out across the hall. For the first time that night, I wasn't ashamed. I wasn't cornered. I wasn't the victim. I was the father who refused to be bought. I leaned close enough for only the two of them to hear and said softly, "You don't get to decide what love is. Not like this." Then I stepped back, turned my back on the stage, and walked away. The music had stopped. The chatter had died. All that remained was the sound of my shoes against the polished floor as I headed for the exit. I felt the stares burning into my back, some shocked, some pitying, some judging, but I didn't care, because every step I took was a step away from their greed. As I reached the doors, I heard her voice crack behind me. "Dad, don't walk away." But I didn't turn around. I pushed open the doors and stepped into the cool night air. The sudden quiet wrapped around me like a cloak. The stars above seemed brighter, the air cleaner, freer. I breathed in deep, and for the first time that evening, I felt steady. They had wanted to humiliate me. They had wanted to strip me down to nothing but a wallet and a suit. But instead, I had given them nothing. Nothing but silence. And silence, I realized, can echo louder than applause. As I walked down the steps of the hall, I passed a group of guests huddled near the entrance. They parted to let me through. One man reached out and touched my arm. "You did the right thing," he whispered. I gave him a nod, nothing more, and kept walking. Behind me, the music started again, forced and hollow. The laughter returned thin and strained. They would try to pretend the moment hadn't happened, but it had, and the cracks were already showing. Later, I heard the whispers spread online. Guests had posted photos wondering why the bride's father walked out before the cake was even cut. The questions piled up on social media, and my silence became louder than any explanation. I didn't look back, because I knew that by leaving that hall without signing, I had already begun writing the ending to their little play. They thought they had won. They thought the stage belonged to them. But the truth is, I was no longer playing their game. And when the curtain finally fell, it wouldn't be me left standing in shame. It would be them. The doors of the wedding hall closed behind me, muffling the noise of music and laughter that had already started again inside. For a moment, I stood there on the steps, breathing in the night air. It was cool and sharp, carrying the faint scent of the city gasoline damp pavement and the sweetness of flowers planted along the walkway. I straightened my jacket and started down the stairs. Each step felt heavy yet steady, as though I were leaving not just a building but a piece of my life behind. People brushed past me, heading inside. Some glanced at me with curiosity, some with pity, but no one stopped me. I kept walking, my shoes clicking against the stone, the sound echoing in the quiet street. For the first time that evening, I wasn't surrounded by whispers. I wasn't trapped by eyes waiting for me to fall. Out here, it was just me and the night. I walked. Block after block, the city stretched out before me. Neon signs flickered above storefronts. Cars rolled by, headlights sweeping across the sidewalk. In the distance, laughter spilled from a bar. Life went on, indifferent to the storm raging inside me. Every step away from that hall gave me clarity. I thought about the look on my daughter's face when I pushed the papers back. Shock, confusion, a flicker of fear. She hadn't expected that. She thought I would hand her everything to avoid embarrassment. But embarrassment doesn't kill you. Betrayal does. As I walked, I heard footsteps behind me. Light quick, a voice called out softly, "Wait." I turned. One of my relatives, my younger cousin, stood there, a little out of breath. He looked at me with concern. "You don't have to go like this," he said. Maybe it was just nerves. Maybe she didn't mean it. I stared at him for a long moment. He was trying, I could see that. But I shook my head slowly. You don't humiliate someone you love in front of the world. Not by accident, not by nerves. That was no mistake. He lowered his eyes, shame flickering across his face. I just thought, maybe you'd regret walking away. I already regret staying as long as I did, I said quietly. He had no answer. After a moment, he patted my shoulder awkwardly and turned back toward the hall. I watched him go, then kept walking. The night stretched on the streets, growing quieter as I moved farther from the city center. My feet carried me without thought past shuttered shops and empty bus stops. My mind was elsewhere. I remembered my wife's words again. "You are stronger than you think." And I realized that my silence tonight had been the first act of strength. I realized silence was my first act of strength. Inside that hall, my daughter and her husband thought they had power. But when I walked out without signing, I took that power back. They might laugh now. They might tell their friends I was stubborn, that I embarrassed myself. But tomorrow, they would realize what had really happened. They had shown me exactly who they were. And I had shown them I wasn't afraid to walk away. I turned down a quiet street lined with trees. The leaves rustled in the cool breeze, whispering like voices from another world. I slowed my steps, listening. In those whispers, I almost heard my wife again, her laugh, her reassurance, her promise that we could survive anything if we stood together. But now it was just me, alone. I stopped under a street lamp, its pale light casting long shadows on the ground. I looked up at the sky. The stars were faint against the city glow, but they were there, distant, steady, eternal. And I thought, if I could survive losing her, I could survive this too. I wasn't sure how yet, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I wouldn't let this betrayal define me. Not by anger, not by despair, but by action. Because action is louder than words. And silence, true silence, is just the pause before a decision. I started walking again slower now, more deliberate. Each step no longer felt heavy but purposeful. By the time I reached my front door, the plan wasn't fully formed. But the seed had been planted. I knew what I had to do. I stepped inside the house, greeting me with its familiar stillness. I hung up my jacket, loosened my tie, and sat down in the armchair by the window. The city lights flickered in the distance, and I let my mind settle. Tomorrow the real reckoning would begin, not with shouts, not with arguments, but with something final, something they would never forget. And as I closed my eyes, I felt no shame, only resolve. The morning light came earlier than I wanted. I hadn't slept much, just a few restless hours of closing my eyes only to open them again with the weight of everything pressing on my chest. But when I sat up in bed and put my feet on the floor, I knew what I had to do. There was no more time for hesitation, no more excuses, no more pretending my daughter's betrayal was just a mistake. It was deliberate, calculated, public, and now it was my turn to act. I dressed in a plain gray suit. Nothing fancy, nothing that drew attention. I ate a piece of toast, drank a black coffee, and left the rest untouched. The house was silent, the kind of silence that feels like it's watching you. I took a folder from my desk drawer papers. I had organized long ago papers they thought they could force from me. Property deeds, bank records, investment summaries. Every line, every number, every detail of the life my wife and I had built together. I tucked the folder under my arm, locked the door, and stepped into the cool morning air. The city was waking up. Delivery trucks rumbled down the streets, storefronts raised their metal shutters, commuters hurried past with coffee in hand. Life was moving forward as if nothing had happened, but everything had changed. I walked into the bank just as the doors opened. The lobby smelled faintly of disinfectant and fresh paper. A young teller greeted me with the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you today?" I placed the folder on the counter and said simply, "I'd like to liquidate my assets." Her smile faltered. "All of them. All of them," I repeated, my voice steady. She blinked, nodded quickly, and called over a manager. Soon I was sitting in a glass-walled office with a man in a navy suit, his tie too tight around his neck. He flipped through my documents, eyebrows rising. "This is a significant amount," he said carefully. "May I ask why?" "No," I said. "Just make it happen." His lips pressed into a thin line. He was used to people explaining themselves, justifying their decisions. I gave him nothing, because this wasn't about money. This was about control, about keeping a promise to my wife, about making sure my daughter and her husband would never see a dime of what they tried to steal. I had been preparing this for weeks, quietly, carefully, without anyone noticing. All I needed now was to sign. That's why everything moved so quickly that morning. Paperwork was signed. Stamps hit the pages with sharp thuds. My pen moved across line after line, each stroke of ink feeling like a release, like cutting a rope that had been strangling me. By the time I left the bank, the wheels were in motion. Properties sold, accounts closed, investments liquidated. But I didn't stop there. From the bank, I walked 3 blocks to a notary office. The building was old, the lobby lined with dark wood panels and the faint smell of ink. A receptionist led me into a quiet room where the notary waited, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "What can I do for you today, Mr. Parker?" she asked. I laid the folder on her desk. "I want to reassign everything. Today." She raised an eyebrow. "Everything? Everything?" We went through it line by line. Deeds transferred. Funds redirected. New documents signed, sealed, and witnessed. By the end, the life I had built was no longer in my daughter's reach. Because I didn't keep the money for myself. I split it. A portion went to establish a scholarship fund in my wife's name, so her memory would live on through the opportunities given to children who had nothing. Another portion went to my granddaughter, the only one who ever bothered to visit me without asking for something. She would have a chance to build her own life without strings attached. And a final portion went to an old friend, the man who had stood by me when I nearly lost everything decades ago. Loyalty deserves to be honored. By the time I walked out of that notary office, I felt lighter than I had in years. The sun was higher now, the streets busier, but I walked slowly, deliberately. People rushed past me, but I didn't hurry. I carried no guilt, no doubt, only resolve. Because my daughter and her husband had believed they could stage a spectacle, embarrass me, break me down in front of the world. Instead, I had taken everything they thought was theirs and given it to people who would truly value it. They didn't know it yet, but soon they would. I paused at a corner cafe and bought another coffee. I sat outside at a small iron table, sipping slowly, watching the crowd move by. For the first time in a long time, the bitterness didn't linger. This was what strength felt like. Not shouting, not fighting, just quiet, decisive action. I thought of my wife again, her voice in my memory. "You are stronger than you think." She was right. And tomorrow, when my daughter came looking for the fortune she thought she had cornered me into giving her, she would finally learn just how strong I could be. The next afternoon, I was sitting in my living room, a fresh cup of coffee in my hand, when the door slammed open. My daughter stormed in, her wedding makeup still faintly smeared around her eyes, her new husband right behind her. The sound of their footsteps thundered through the house, shaking the quiet walls that had held only my silence for years. "Where is it?" she demanded. Her voice cracked not with sorrow, but with rage. "The money, the inheritance. Don't play games with us." I didn't move. I didn't even look at them right away. I took a slow sip of my coffee, the bitter warmth grounding me. Only then did I raise my eyes. "You're too late," I said calmly. Her husband stepped forward, his fists clenched at his sides. "What do you mean, too late?" I reached for the folder on the table and slid it toward them. "It's gone. Sold. Transferred. Every cent is already where it belongs." My daughter snatched the papers, flipping through them with trembling hands. Her eyes widened as she read. Deeds transferred. Accounts emptied. Contracts finalized. Seals stamped. Every last signature in place. Her face turned pale. You gave it away." "Not gave," I corrected. "I chose to honor your mother, to reward loyalty, to make sure what we built went somewhere it would be respected." Her husband grabbed the papers from her, scanning them furiously. His face grew red, his voice sharp. "You can't do this. You had no right." I leaned back in my chair, folding my hands over my lap. I had every right. It was mine to decide. And I decided. The room fell quiet for a moment, but it wasn't a peaceful quiet. It was the silence before a storm. My daughter slammed the papers down on the table. "Do you realize what you've done? You've ruined us. Do you have any idea what people will think of me when they find out?" Her words stung, but not for the reason she thought. Not once did she say she was sorry. Not once did she mention her mother or our family, or the years of sacrifice that money represented. No, her first thought was her reputation, her image. "You ruined yourself," I said softly, "when you stood in that hall and treated me like a bank account instead of a father. When you humiliated me in front of every guest. That was the moment you lost everything." Her husband's voice rose louder now, desperate. "Undo it. Call them. Stop the transfers." I shook my head. "It's finished. The signatures are sealed. The money is gone. You can't touch it now." For the first time, I saw fear flicker in his eyes. My daughter's hands balled into fists. She shook her head violently. "No. No. You can't do this to me." "To you," I echoed. I stood slowly, my knees stiff but steady. I looked her dead in the eye. "Do you even hear yourself? This was never yours. Not by birth, not by blood. Your mother and I built it. We lived through hunger, cold, and exhaustion to create something from nothing. And you thought you could claim it with a microphone and a smile?" She flinched, but pride kept her from looking away. I turned my gaze to her husband. "And you? You thought marrying my daughter was marrying into fortune. But you married into a family. A family you tried to dismantle before it even began. He bristled, his jaw clenched tight, but he didn't speak. I let the silence hang for a long moment. Then I added, my voice steady as stone. You will leave this house now. There's nothing for you here. My daughter's lip trembled. Dad, please. But the word please rang hollow. There was no love in it, only desperation for what she had lost. I walked to the front door, opened it wide, and stood aside. Out. They hesitated. For a second, I wondered if they would fight, scream, try to argue. But in the end, all they could do was glare at me, with hate burning in their eyes. My daughter snatched the papers from the table again, though they were worthless to her now. Her husband muttered under his breath something about lawyers, something about revenge. I didn't answer. They stepped outside, their footsteps retreating down the path. I stood in the doorway until they were gone, the cool air filling the house behind me. When I finally closed the door, I felt something shift inside me. Not joy, not triumph, just certainty. They had tried to turn my life into a spectacle. They had tried to break me in public. But in the end, it was their pride that had been shattered. I sat back down, picked up my coffee, and took another sip. The taste was stronger, this time sharper. The fight was over, but the consequences were only beginning. The slam of the front door still echoed through the house long after they were gone. For a while, I just sat there listening to the silence. The same walls that once carried my wife's laughter and my daughter's footsteps now felt heavier than ever. I thought they wouldn't come back so soon. I thought maybe a week, maybe a lawyer's letter, maybe silence. But I was wrong. That evening, just as the sun dipped below the rooftops and painted the street in shades of gold, I heard a car screech into my driveway. The sound of heels striking the path came fast and sharp. Then came the knock, not a polite tap, but a pounding, as if the door had offended her. I opened it. There she stood, my daughter, her wedding dress, gone, replaced by jeans and a jacket, her hair messy, her eyes red and swollen. Her husband wasn't with her. For a moment, she looked less like a bride, and more like the little girl who used to cry when her toys broke. But the difference was, this time it wasn't a doll she wanted fixed. It was her life. Dad, she said, her voice cracking, please. You can't do this to me. I stayed silent. Tears welled in her eyes. She pushed past me into the house, pacing like a storm, trapped in a bottle. I need that money. You don't understand? We made plans, big plans. People know about them. Everyone's expecting us to start this new life. How am I supposed to tell them it's all gone? Her words twisted something in me, not pity, not sympathy, but grief. The grief of realizing just how far gone she was. Do you hear yourself? I asked quietly. It's not about family, not about love, not even about your mother's memory. It's about appearances, about what people will think of you. She stopped pacing. For a second, her face softened like she was a child again caught in a lie. But then her pride snapped back. You don't get it, Dad. This is my life. This is my future. And you just... She flung her arms out. You just threw it away. I set my jaw. No, I saved it. I saved it from being poisoned by greed. Her voice broke into a sob. You don't understand what it's like. Everyone else gets help from their parents. Everyone else gets handed down what they built. Why not me? I looked her in the eyes, my voice low and steady. Because everyone else doesn't humiliate their father on their wedding day. Everyone else doesn't see family as a bank. And because your mother trusted me to protect what we built from anyone, even you. At the mention of her mother, her face crumpled. She sank into a chair, covering her face with her hands. The sobs came harder now, tearing through the anger and leaving only desperation. Dad? I didn't mean it, she whispered between gasps. I was nervous. I was scared. I didn't think it through. Please. Please, can't we undo this? For the first time in years, I saw the little girl in her again. The one who used to cling to my leg when thunder shook the house. the one who used to beg me for one more bedtime story. But I also saw the woman she had become. The woman who looked me in the eye at that wedding and called me old, useless. A man whose only worth was measured in dollars. And I couldn't ignore that. I sat across from her, folding my hands together. You may regret it now, but regret doesn't erase the words you said. Regret doesn't erase the fact that you and your husband planned this for months, thinking I was too weak to fight back. Her eyes widened. You knew? I nodded. I heard you. I knew. Long before the wedding, I saw the signs. I just didn't want to believe them. I ignored the signs because I didn't want to believe my own daughter could betray me. But you did. And that's something you'll carry forever. Her sobs slowed, replaced by silence so heavy it pressed on both of us. Finally, she looked up, her face streaked with tears. So that's it? You're cutting me out. Your only daughter. I took a long breath. No, I'm cutting out the version of you that chose greed over love. Whether you stay that version or find your way back, that's up to you. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. The room grew still. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall, each second louder than the last. I leaned forward, my voice softer now, almost breaking. Your mother wanted me to protect what we built. I did. But what she wanted even more was for you to grow into a woman of kindness and strength. You've strayed far from that, but it's not too late. Money won't bring you back. Only choices will. Her shoulders slumped, her hands falling to her lap. For once, she had no fight left in her. She sat there for a long time, silent, broken. Then, without a word, she stood, walked slowly to the door, and left. The door clicked shut behind her, and I sat there alone, staring at the empty chair where she had cried, wondering if I had just lost her for good, or if this was the first step in getting her back. The house was still after she left, the quiet pressing in around me like a heavy blanket. I sat in the armchair, staring at the empty cushion where she had cried. My hands trembled just slightly, not from weakness, but from the weight of everything that had just happened. For years I had carried the fear that one day the family I built would turn against me. That fear had come true. But as I sat there, I realized something important. It hadn't destroyed me. It had freed me. In the days that followed, the silence of my home no longer felt like emptiness. It felt like peace. There were no more footsteps demanding, no more voices whispering about money. Only stillness. And in that stillness, I began to see the outlines of something new. The first call came from the lawyer, confirming that every transaction had gone through. The scholarship fund in my wife's name was official, already receiving applications from bright young students who never had a chance. The second call came from the community center. They told me my daughter had shown up asking for work. Not glamorous, not high-paying, just work. They said she seemed different, humbled, quieter. The third call wasn't a call at all. It was a knock at my door. When I opened it, my granddaughter stood there clutching a small envelope. She smiled shyly and handed it to me. Inside was a crayon drawing of me and her standing together under a big yellow sun. Above us, she had written in shaky letters, "Family means love, not money." I felt tears sting my eyes as I hugged her. In that moment, I knew the legacy my wife and I had worked for wasn't lost. It was alive, breathing, growing in her. Weeks passed. My daughter called occasionally, her voice softer each time. She didn't ask for money anymore. She asked how I was feeling. She asked if she could bring her daughter to visit. And though part of me stayed guarded, another part deep down allowed a seed of hope to take root. One Sunday afternoon, I visited my wife's grave. I brought roses, the ones she always loved. I sat on the bench nearby, the autumn leaves crunching under my shoes, and spoke aloud. "I kept my promise," I whispered. "I didn't let them take what we built. The money is safe. More than that, it's helping others now. Children will study. Families will thrive. Your name will live on. I paused, the wind rustling through the trees, carrying my words upward. And our daughter, she's hurting, but maybe she's learning. I don't know if she'll ever be the girl we raised again. But I'll wait. I'll give her that chance. I closed my eyes and let the memory of her last words echo once more. You are stronger than you think. She was right. Strength wasn't in fighting or shouting. It was in knowing when to stand silent, when to walk away, when to choose dignity over humiliation, and most of all, when to protect love over greed. As I sat there, a peace settled over me. For the first time since she passed, I didn't feel like I was carrying it all alone. That night back home, I lit a single candle by her photograph. I watched the flame dance steady and warm. My story hadn't ended the way I once imagined. Family gathered love, unbroken fortune passed down like a gift. Instead, it ended in loss, betrayal, and silence. But sometimes silence is the only way to protect what matters. I don't know what tomorrow will bring with my daughter. Maybe she'll rebuild herself, maybe she won't. But I do know one thing: the circle has closed. The promises were kept, and my wife's legacy is safe. I leaned back, closing my eyes, and for the first time in years, I smiled. Because even in betrayal, there can be healing. Even in loss, there can be strength. And even in silence, there can be love. So if you've stayed with me through this story, through the pain, the betrayal, and the lessons, I ask you to remember this. Protect your dignity. Protect your heart. And never let greed rewrite your love. And if this story resonated with you, share it. Leave a comment. Subscribe so these lessons born from real wounds and real healing can keep reaching others who need to hear them. Because in the end, what matters most isn't what we leave behind in money. It's what we leave behind in love.